Hello, all viewers. I can see a hi from Deepali Mahajan. Hi, Deepali. Hope you are doing well. Good to have you on the viewing list. Hi, Saksham. I can see your comment about the problem with your team. I hope you get out of the problem very soon. I'll try to remove the team from the team battle. So, in the team battles, actually, when you are a team manager, unless someone else has the access as the team manager, he cannot kick you out. So you must have given access to someone as admin of the team or as a leader of the team who was in position to remove you from the team. That's for Saksham. So all viewers, just hold on for 2 minutes. We'll be starting the tournament very soon. Okay, all viewers, we are going to start a tournament very soon now with just 8 seconds remaining. All the viewers out there, hi from Khelo Chess India. Hope you are doing well, safe and sound at your homes. And this is going to be a new tournament or new era for the chess, wherein we are starting the online battles between best teams in the world right now. And we have I think the tournament has started. I'm just waiting for ready to check the games. I think let's check the games from the Kilo Chess India, who all are playing right now. So we have Debanjan, Sonia Atharva, Never Mistakes. All these are playing from Kilo Chess India. Let's check Sonia Atharva's game. I think the pairing has not yet been assigned for some reason. Yeah, I think the pairing is not yet assigned. Let's try to refresh once and to check if the games have started. Yeah, so the games have started ended. Let's check the one of the games between the English player and the English team and the one from Gujarat Lions. Let's check the first move: d4, e6, c4, f5, knight c3, knight f6, and g3, bishop to b4, bishop to g2, castles, knight f3, pawn to c5, castles, knight to c6, pawn to d5, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, and knight to a5. Knight to d2, pawn to e5, pawn to e4, pawn to d6. So it's like a better version of Benoni is something that I can remember now, wherein the e6 pawn is not exchanged by white when the e6 is played, and then black was able to push the pawn as well as he was able to play f5. So this is slightly a better version for black of the Benoni defense, or even in case of the uh, not in the exactly the king's Indian, but without the bad bishop on g7 or the bishop which is stuck generally. This is a better way to continue and better position for black. Black is already having this target of the c4 square, and I think that would be captured soon. And this bishop is a dead bishop right now, so it's difficult for white to develop his pieces, get the good squares, and then they try to attack further. I will also be playing couple of games in this. Pawn to f4, it's an adventurous move actually, yeah. So rook from a8, which was not doing anything right now, and suddenly that rook has got into the game on e5 square, and that is going to be good achievement for black. Now all black's pieces are doing something on the board except the knight on f6. Knight on f6 is not the best piece. And queen exchange, I'm not sure if that's the best option here. Probably black has seen something. Rook to e4, rook takes, knight takes. Now the c3 pawn is hanging, bishop f4, and now I think knight takes c4 can be played first, supporting the d6 pawn. The d6 pawn is now supported. Now this rook is attacking the knight, and I think this rook takes can be done. Knight takes pawn can be done now. Knight takes c3, bishop to h3. And suddenly white has got his mating attack. Look at the bishops. White's bishops, they are beautifully placed right now. And if rook h4 is allowed, then there is a check and mate on. Yes, rook h4 is allowed. So that's a check and mate. So suddenly black was in a better position and the game got turned because of the queen exchange. I think queen exchange was not the best move there. Let's go to turning point of the game. Queen to g6. 6. I think this is not the best move. If you exchange the pieces, black would not be in an attacking position. That's what white wants right now. White just wants to get the queens exchange and the pieces exchange and make sure that white does black doesn't get any attack further in the game. So instead of queen g6, I think you should have played something like queen to h5. Of course, then this rook h4 is available and there is a mate threat on h7, but this knight is supporting the h7 square. So queen h5, rook to h4, and queen can go back to f7. So that would have been a better option, probably keeping the queen in the open file here to develop some threats. Knight takes d5 could have been played later on because of this queen f7 check if it's available. So yeah, queen g6 I think was the turning point of the game, wherein the after the exchange, white was in a position to just equalize quickly and continue the game. So let's go back to tournament and try to find the next game. Let's try to join and play a game for Khelo Chess India here. So meanwhile, guys, if you have any doubts or any questions, you can put in the comment section. I would be happy to answer them. Okay, I'm just waiting for the game to get assigned here. I am playing for Khelo Chess India, which is on number 3 right now. And I've been paired against Ernesto Rondon from Sri Lanka team. So I'm waiting for him to make his first move. E4, let's try to play C5 here. C3, this is called as a Alapin opening, and this is very tricky opening actually. And I should remember there is no increment here, so I have to play very fast. This tournament is without increment, so it puts you in a question that whether you can think fast. In d5, I think bishop to let me castle first, keep my king safe. And now knight c3, queen c7. This bishop is attacked, and the c3 pawn is also queen b3 is expected. Knight c6 now. Put the knight on this a5 square and threaten this bishop. So bishop goes back. And now I think I can play bishop e6, queen to, let's take bishop e6. I think pawn d5 is there, but I have this knight a4 move. So knight a4 now. Or can I play rook to c8? Yeah, let's play rook to c8. Just put pressure on this c4 pawn. And now I think I can play this knight b4. It won't be effective right now. Let's first. I have 2 minutes and 10 seconds. I have knight d4. No, knight d4 cannot be played right now. So let me play queen b6 first. Oh, but I am allowing rook to b1. This is not the best way to play, guys. Okay, and queen goes to e2. Let me play knight to a5. Put the knight on c4 square. Trying to get some good squares like this. And the pawn is hanging here. Let me just pull back the queen to support this pawn. And I think now rook to c1 can be played. Knight to c4. Bishop will capture. The bishop can come to the c4 square and get the good square on the. Okay, bishop to c5. I think I can play b6 move. Pawn takes, that would put me in a slightly better position. I'm not sure. I think queen will move now so that this exchange can be answered by the another exchange. Yeah, that's what I was concerned about. So let us just put, no, we cannot put rook on d8 right away. Let's play queen to b6 first. Now we can play this move, I think. Still this f7 is vulnerable. I have to take care of that. I think bishop to h6 was a good option there. Rook moves, and I think I can capture the pawn now. This e7 pawn is still hanging, so I have to make sure that I support it. Let's play rook d7 and double the rook in the d file. sorry. Okay, so queen is trying to attack in the on the f7 square here. I do have no, I don't have that move right now. Let's try to for an exchange to this queen for the queen. Queen moves, the exchange is declined, and this is a difficult situation now. Pawn push. Queen moves. Let's move rook to d5. I think queen h4 is expected, so bishop can come back now. Knight g5 is expected, and f7 is gone. Okay, let's play. No, we can't play. Let's play this move first. I think knight f7 is expected then, and rook takes pawn. Knight takes just 28 seconds on the clock now, guys. So I have to play fast now. Knight e6, and now I think I have to capture this. Queen takes, king h7. Queen f7 is I think playable. Let's try to exchange off the rooks. So the problem is there is no increment here. So we have to play without increment, and that's I think the losing move for me. So I've missed a couple of chances there in the between. That was losing for me then. Let's go back to a tournament. Let's pause and try to pick up another game here. Let's try to pick up a game between Maximus Gladiator and Aryan Brave. Aryan Brave is from Khelo Chess India, and Maximus Gladiator is from Iran, I think. This is an Iranian team. And it's a beautiful ending, guys, wherein Gladiator is under a lot of time pressure. Yeah, this should be winning for White now. If White is able to save his time and get his pieces together. Yeah, so checkmating in such in 3 seconds is difficult with the queen and kings. But let's check Maximus Gladiator's skills here. If he is able to check and mate. He's playing fast, and yeah, that's the problem. King should not have gone to the last rank. King should have tried to be on the second and third ranks. Now it's easy. Just bring the king and deliver a check and mate here. Yeah, it's a mate now. Yeah, so beautiful execution by Maximus Gladiator. Just zero point 0.9 seconds on the clock, and he was able to checkmate the opponent. Let's go back to tournament and check who all are playing from Kilo Chess India. We have a lot of players actually from Kilo Chess India. We have DMD, DMBA. Shrihan Sabat is another good player. Let's check if he is playing a game now. Yeah, he's playing with King Nilesh. I think King Nilesh is from Gujarat Lions. So just check. Let's just check what's happening here. E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, Pawn C3, Pawn to D6, Pawn to D4. I can see a comment from Sunil. Hi Sunil, hope you are doing well. All safe and sound at your home. D4. I think this is the Ponziani opening. This pawn to C3 is called as the Ponziani opening. This is again a new way to surprise your opponent, and if you know the theory you can very well play this opening. This is called as the Ponziani opening. So pawn to d6, pawn to d4, pawn takes d4, c takes d4, knight to f6, knight to c3, bishop to e7, bishop to e2, castles, castles, and bishop to g4, pawn to h3, bishop h5, bishop g4, bishop g6, pawn to e5, pawn take, and this knight now has to make a difficult choice of his life where to go. It decides to go on e4, another square where there are a lot of tactics happening in the center. So bishop takes e7, queen takes e7. Was knight takes c3 possible here? Knight takes c3. What are the two options with white? White can capture the queen on d8, or he can capture the knight. So if he captures the knight, then we can capture back the bishop, and we have this weakness on the c3 square which can be targeted. If after knight takes c3, bishop takes queen is played, then we can play rook takes knight takes queen, and this bishop can go back, and then we have to try to come back with knight cross b2, knight cross a4, and knight to c5 or knight b6. So difficult choice for black, and to understand this if knight takes c3 is working, but this is how you should calculate when your game is going on. So queen takes e7 was played, a simpler option for black. Knight to d5, queen to d8, and bishop to c4, rook to e8, and we have knight to f4, knight to e5, knight takes e5, rook takes e5, and knight takes g6, pawn takes g6, queen to f3, queen to f6, and now queen to b3. Just trying to make sure that the attack is still eminent on black side by attacking b7 and f7 at the same times. So pawn to b6, defending the b7 pawn, rook to d1, rook to d8, rook takes. Oh, that's a blunder, I think, because now this f7 pawn will remain undefended after queen takes d8. Okay. Uh, okay, rook d8, rook takes d8, queen takes d8, bishop takes f7, king takes h7, queen to c2, queen to f6, bishop to b3, knight to c5, bishop to c4, pawn to a6, pawn to b4, and knight to d7. So I can see a comment from Sunil. See my full comment. Try to improve commentary by showing the face and just a board. You should not use screen sharing. Okay, so yes, Sunil, we will try that. We still have to. There is a bandwidth problem with which the video from your webcam as well as screen sharing, it creates a good amount of load on the bandwidth. So we have to try doing it. Yes, but thanks for the suggestion, Sunil. We will try to work upon that. Thanks. So bishop takes a6 here, pawn to b5, bishop to c8, knight to b6, bishop to g4, knight to c4, bishop to e2, queen to c6, and rook to c1. Now the c4 pawn is hanging right now, so yeah, c4 is now gone, and I think that would put white in the driving seat. It would be easy for white to win now with the extra pawns on the board. I think white should have kept his pawns connected, the A and B pawns connected. It would have been given, it would have been a clear advantage for white then, because this a4, a5 might have been unstoppable in this case. Now in this case, this pawn is isolated, so it is not easy for this rook to just push the pawn, and I think that's yeah, that's the blunder from black side. The skewer was missed here. So this, there was a skewer here, just to explain you the combination here. So king e7 is a blunder. King f7 is probably the best move. So rook was played to this g8 square, allowing this rook takes b7, but then we have rook takes g7 check and king moves, and we have then have rook takes rook. So this skewer should not be missed, guys, when your pawn, when the opponent's pawn is on 7th rank and opponent has rooks and you have rooks too. Okay. So Sunil says, okay, you're CM Garv. Okay, Sunil, that's good to know. We have you playing daily in our LiChess battle, Khelo Chess India, and we are happy to have you. And I like to broadcast your game as well. You play very well. Thanks for participating in our tournaments. Okay, so let's try to get the next game, guys. So thanks, Sunil, for your suggestion and for revealing your ID as well with the leeches. That will be remembered. All the best to you too if you are playing. So let's try to pick up the next game. Mm, we have Nazgul and Gujarat Lions Rudra Pathakji Pathak. Okay, Rudra Pathak and Nazgul. Nazgul, I think, is from Sri Lanka, and Rudra Pathak is from India, playing for Gujarat Lions. So let's quickly check what happened in the opening. D4, E6, knight F3, pawn to C5, pawn to C3, pawn takes, and pawn to D5. Bishop g5, knight f6, pawn to e3, pawn bishop to e7, bishop to d3, knight to c6, knight d2, bishop d7, castles, pawn to h6, bishop to h4, castles, and rook to c1, rook to c8, bishop to b1, knight to e8, and bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and queen to e2. Knight d6, and this is how this maneuvering happened actually. Just this knight went to e8 and came to d6. Now it controls critical squares of e4, c4, this f5 and b4. Yes, Sunil, thanks. Bye bye. Bye for now. So this is the way you can maneuver the pieces in your games as well and try to put them in a better position like what black did here. Okay, so this knight went to e8 and it came to d6, controlling all the critical squares here. Okay, so we have queen to d3, threatening a mate on h7 immediately, and pawn to f5, pawn to a3, knight to e4, knight to b3, queen to f6, knight to c4, queen rook to c7, and knight takes d7, rook takes d7, queen to b5, and this is actually slightly turning up good for I think black because he has this f4 break. His queen and rook are nicely lined up. His rook can maneuver to f7. It is also defending the b7 square. So white has to find some way to break this pawn chain, probably by moving knight somewhere and trying to play f3. So black won the game eventually. So this was the position, guys. So rook c7 was played again. Queen b5, rook c7 was played again. Knight to e5, rook to c8, knight takes c6, pawn takes c6, and queen came back to e2. Pawn to c5, pawn takes c5, and rook takes c5, rook takes c5, rook takes c5, and bishop to e4. Pawn takes e4, and now queen h5. So suddenly this white queen has now become active, and there are checks available for white here. So rook goes back to c8, rook to d8, rook to c2, and there is this mating threat on f2 now, f2 and g2. So queen e8 check, king to h7, and rook f1 back, rook takes b7, queen a4, rook b7. Rook b7 is again defending this a7 square, pawn to f3, queen to g5, and pawn to f4. I think your exchange, okay, this e3 pawn is hanging, guys. So probably that's why didn't exchange, but if exchange, then queen takes e3 check is there, king can move to g1, h1, and then probably queen takes e4 or d takes e4 or even d4 can be played to continue the game. So pawn to f4, then queen to f6, queen to c6, rook to b3, rook queen to c1, pawn to d4, pawn takes d4, queen to d4 check, king h1, pawn to e3, queen to c2 check, and queen d3 now, queen to c6, queen f8, even f1 is check and mate. So a simple check and mate for black here, easy to win this one. Let's quickly go back and check the next game. We also have Khelo Chess India. Uh, okay, so Debanjan says, okay. Let's pick the next game. Let's pick up the next game between. Mm, let's try to go on the next page and check who all are playing from Khelo Chess India. DBMA is playing from Khelo Chess India. Let's just check this game. He's playing against a 2300 rated player. So e4, d5, knight c3, pawn takes, knight f6, knight to g3, pawn to e5, knight to f3, bishop to d6, bishop c5, bishop c4, castles, pawn to d3, knight to c6, castles, bishop to e6, bishop to b3, bishop takes b3, pawn takes b3, pawn to a5, pawn to h3, queen to e7, queen to e2, rook to e8, bishop to g5, pinning the knight here on f6. So we have pawn to h6, bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, and knight to e4. So this open file is actually helping white to just get this good square on e4. Rook will probably come back to e1, try to put some pressure here, or even this rook can be maneuvered from e4 and then try to bring it on the king side somehow. So there are a lot of options with white here, but at the same time, black has to figure out how to continue here. Black's plans are not clear. So rook to e1 and queen to f6. So probably now white can just try to pile up in the c file here. If possible, c3 pawn is going to be pushed, but then we have queen e6 and queen can put pressure on this b3 square. So we have rook to d1, knight to d4, knight takes d4, pawn takes d4, queen takes e8. So queen has is been exchanged for both the rooks here, and white has to play prove that he can win after this exchange because it won't be easy for white here. Okay, black is playing well right now. He is trying to create passers on the uh, queen side. Pawn takes, queen takes, and now king to g2. So there is actually a mating threat here. If queen is not defending this e7, we have this rook check, and of course king can go and sit in on the h7 square. But still, it won't be easy. So black resigned here. Let's check what happened in the game. So this was the position, and then we have queen to c5, rook to a6, queen to b5, rook to a7 check, king to g8, rook to a8 check, king f7, a few repetition of the moves, and then both the rooks coming on the 7th rank. So rook takes g7, king to f8, rook to f7, king to e8. We have attack on the queen and a threat of check and mate. So double threat here, and after queen to d6, rook to c8, queen d8, and this is a clear win for white. Let's go back to a tournament and try to pick up the next game here. Yes, Sunil, I can see your comment that very bad to see that 2000 rated player is streaming less in working. So that's the part of life. We cannot just argue there. This is something that we have started new, Sunil. So probably people are not yet aware of my coaching. My coaching, not just coaching, but my uh, commentary on my channel. So I'm trying to promote by day, trying to achieve more viewers and more subscribers. So it will take time, of course, and the time is another factor that is killing us, because we have to work as well as in the free time we have to do the chess work. Some people are 100% dedicated to chess. They don't have any other job to do. So that's why we have to sometimes sometimes it takes times, but that's okay, Sunil. But yeah, I can understand your comment. Thanks for the appreciation, Sunil. So e4 e5, this game is between the Ernest Rondon from Sri Lanka team versus Nandu Gautak from Gujarat Lions. E4 e5, knight f3, knight f6, a Petrov's defense. Knight takes e5, pawn to d6, knight to f3, knight to e4, pawn to d3, knight to f6, pawn to d4. This is again one of the main lines of Petrov defense, wherein you just play knight to e4 here, capture the pawn on e4, and there is a d4 move also, d4 as well as d3 move, and then this knight is kicked back. So we have pawn to d4, pawn to h6, pawn to h3, pawn to d5, bishop to d3, bishop to d6, castles and castles, pawn to c4. So this pawn to c4 actually converts this position in kind of a pano pano attack. So pano attack is something that you can play against the Caro-Kann defense, and in this case also when c6 is played here, so it can get converted into a pano bot winning attack. So these are transpositions which can happen from the different positions, different openings. So pawn to c4, pawn takes c4, bishop takes c4, knight to c6, pawn to a3, bishop to f5, knight to c3, rook to e8, bishop to e3, queen to d7. Now nicely lining up against this king side on the h3 pawn, and then we have rook to e1, pawn to a6, rook to c1, pawn to b5, knight takes b5, pawn takes b5, and bishop takes b5, bishop to e4, and pawn to d5. This knight was pinned here, so that's something that probably not missed, because this pawn can be captured here by a knight or the bishop. But yeah, so this exchange is something which why would black capture this knight? Actually, this is a position, guys, and this pawn is supposed to now capture the knight, but it can be captured with the bishop. Bishop takes d5, and black seems to be okay if I'm not wrong. Bishop takes c6, and bishop takes c6, rook takes c6, queen takes c6, and I think black should be fine after bishop takes d5. I'm just correct me if I'm wrong here. And then we have bishop takes f3, bishop takes c6, and I think this is where I think black is losing now, because he would be piece down after this. At least now, not a piece down, but I think this exchange down is what black piece down. Yeah, white is now a piece down. It's short of a knight. So that's clear winning for black now. It's interesting to see how this white blundered actually in this exchange, so that Black got a lucky position here. Okay, so black left the game. Oh, black left the game. Black was winning here. So lucky win for the white player here because black got disconnected, and this is probably the most frustrating part in any player's life when he is winning against a high rated player but he loses because of internet disconnection. So hard luck there for the black player. He was winning from black side, but let's try to pick up a next game now. Let's try to pick up Plavit. Plavit is playing from India, Khelo Chess India. So let's try to pick up his game. He's playing against a very good player. So Jonas is 2300 rated, and Jonas is from I think Spain. Okay, Spain or probably Switzerland. We have to check that. And Jonas is winning this one probably. He has sacrificed a piece here. This would be an interesting game, guys. Let's try to see it from the opening. E4, c5, bishop c4, pawn to e6, and okay, it was a repetition draw, but it would be interesting how black sacrificed the piece here. Pawn to e4, pawn to c5, bishop c4, pawn e6, pawn d3, knight c6, pawn to f3, pawn to d5, pawn takes, and bishop to b5. Knight to f6, knight c3, bishop e7, and castles, bishop to g5, pawn to h6, bishop to h4, bishop to e6, rook to e1, rook e8, and bishop takes c6, pawn takes c6, knight to e5, queen to c7, attacking the knight on e5 now. So bishop comes back to g3 and supports that knight on e5, also creating an discovered attack on that queen now on c7. So bishop d6 has been played to nullify this attack from this bishop to the queen on c7. So we have pawn to h3 and rook b8, attacking this b7 square now, and rook b1, rook to d8, pawn to a3, knight to d7, knight takes d7, bishop takes g3, and I think knight takes c5 is not now available, but this exchange is actually well worth actually to spend time here because bishop takes g3 will put white into a big question that if he should capture the bishop on g3 or he should retract the knight back to c5. So a difficult choice for white here. So bishop takes g3 and we have bishop pawn takes c3, but knight takes c5 was played here. So in this scenario, you need a lot of time to calculate what is actually going to happen in the game. So knight takes c5 was played, bishop to h2 check, king to h1, and bishop went back to the c8 square so that this rook can be now challenged here. So pawn to g3 was played, trying to trap the bishop. So was there another move here, intermediate move, which would have helped white to trap this bishop altogether? A move like queen h5, it's not working. Queen f3, it's not working. That will allow bishop to d6 actually. So I think there was no move here that would create any difference or that would put more pressure on black. There is no intermediate move, so g3 was played by white. Bishop takes g3, f takes g3, queen takes g3, and queen to d2, supporting this second rank. And now we have bishop takes h3. If we play rook e1 first before capturing the, okay, this was a position. Okay, if rook e1 is played, then queen e1 and it supports the pawn, so there is no point in exchanging the rooks first. So queen takes g3 is kind of compulsory. Queen d2, doing the second rank defense, and then we have bishop takes h3, and we have queen h2, queen to f3 check, rook to king to g1, and queen g4, king to h1, and this was a repetition here. So probably this is where black did not find any better move to continue the game, and hence the draw was called off by the threefold repetition. Let's go back to tournament, guys, and check the next game. So in the next game we have let's check if Akil is playing. Akil is from our Pakistan team. Okay, let's go back. This is not the way. Hold on, guys. F11. We went on his profile by mistake. So we have chess talent in Pakistan. That is a team from Pakistan. We have Akil actually. He is the captain of chess talent in Pakistan, and he's also a good player. Let's check if we have any game going on between India and Pakistani players. So, Khelo Chess India, there are a lot of players who are playing right now from Khelo Chess India. Let's check who all are on top right now. We have Devanjan on top from Khelo Chess India, and then we have Plavit. Plavit is also playing from Khelo Chess India. We just saw his game, and then we have a couple of players DMBA and Rodrigum. Rodrigum is playing, I think. Yeah, he's playing against Blitz Super King. So let's check this game, guys, and just give me a couple of seconds. I have to do a setup for the Kilo Chase India team battle, which starts at 9:30 p.m. IST. So I just need a minute, guys, to make sure that everything is in place and all players can play this team battle at 9:30 p.m. IST. So I will be going on mute for about 1 minute. I'll be coming back soon. Okay, guys, I'm back. So just making few quick checks before the 9:30 Kilo Chess India 63rd team battle. That is what we are going to have today. So the live broadcast will start a bit late because we have to first finish this tournament. Once this tournament is over, we'll be starting the uh, LiChess team battle that we have. And we have, yes, Rancho, just a minute. Sorry, I was away, Rancho, when you came here. And I was looking at the Rancho says Namaste, sir. So, Namaste, first of all, to you, Rancho. I was away for getting my our 63rd Khelo Chess India team battle is coming up at 9:30 p.m. So I was making sure that everything is correct for that and team URL and everything is working out there. So this battle is going on between the Blitz Super King, that is 2247 rated, versus Rodrigum. Rodrigum is from Khelo Chess India. And remember, guys, this tournament is without increment, so everyone has to be on their toes, especially in the end games wherein there is very less time left on the clock and you have to be at your best because there is no increment. So this happens. There is actually a lot of problems if there is no increment. Even if you are winning the game with your all your talent, even there is a chance that due to time you lose the game. So I'm not generally in favor of this sudden death tournaments. You should always have some increment in your game, even if it is 1 second. That's fine, but you should have some increment in the game at least. Yep. So that's the game, guys. So white 1 year. Let's go back to a tournament and try to pick up the next game. Hello, all viewers out there. If you have any questions, you can ask in the comment section. This is the third world countries, not the third, but world countries third chess team battle going on right now. We are already, I think, 20, 30 minutes into the 35 minutes into the tournament, and still 40 minutes are remaining. So let's pick up next game from. Let's try to pick up a game from. I'm just trying. Trisha Soni is playing from Khelo Chess India. Let's try to pick up. Okay, she has not played any game. We have Jion Ghosh from playing from India. He has also not played. So these are all on 0 points. Let's go back and try to find someone on from Khelo Chess India. If you have anyone, any player whose game you want to pick up, you can just let me know. I'll try to take that game first. So we have, yeah, one. Just let's go back. So Debanjan says actually he is not. It's getting boring day by day. So all the viewers out there, just let me know if you are getting bored by my commentary. I'll try to improve. I'll try to bring something new in the tournament, in the live broadcast, so that you enjoy as much as possible. Let's try to pick up another game. Let's go to the actually the top tables and get this. Let's try to pick up this game. Super Bohemo actually he plays for the Chess Blasters also, and now today he's playing for the he's playing today for the Spanish team. So let's check this game. This is between the Spain versus Pakistan. The team tournament is going on, and this is kind of a perk defense that Black is trying to set up here. A perk defense, Bishop G7 and Queen to E2. Pawn to e5, early e5 here. So putting the knight in, and now e6. Yes, this is kind of the break that white should look for. Try to destroy this black's castle on the king side, and now h4. So white just doesn't care about his king's safety. He's just going for a full-fledged attack here. And pawn to h6 is not playable because of bishop takes h6. The h7 pawn is hanging, and this is one of the worst situations for black out there. Look at this attack, guys. This is just super entertainment. I will explain this game again once this game is done, but the attack has been superb so far without any issues. It reminds me of the Great Tal and also the sacrifices by Capablanca. So all the great players who were super aggressive, super tactical, you get those memories. You feel nostalgic when you see such games wherein there have been full-fledged attack on one of the sides and that leads to the win generally. So now it's White's ability to convert this into a win after getting a super position. If now White is not able to convert this into a win, then it would be very much unfortunate for White. Knight on c3 should somehow come into the game and try to be active at least by knight e2 or knight e2, knight g3. This path. Just try to put pressure here or at least try to get it on to the e4 square. Bishop e4, knight e4. Yeah, that's what I think he heard me. I think knight has to come back to c3 now, just to make sure there is no check and mate on the a1 square. Pawn to c3 has been played, and I think that's going to create some more trouble for white because this bishop on g6 is now going to be someone who can create a mating threat on the b1 square. Knight b4. I'm just thinking about the knight b4 move if it is possible. Knight b4, c takes b4. Just wondering about this move, knight b4. Okay. Yeah, that's come. Just some order has been changed here. Pawn takes, and now rook c3 and b2 pawn is hanging. So it's going to be, so knight has to, knight cannot come back. It's been pinned. So bishop c3 is kind of forced now. b2 I think will lead to a mate here. Queen takes b2, king a4, and then probably, oh, there was queen takes b2. Why queen takes b2 was not played here? It was a winning move for white. Oh, sorry, for the black. Because after queen takes b2, there is king to e4 force. Then we have this queen c, queen a2 check, king to b5, and a6 was check and mate. So I think checkmate was missed here. Let's go back a couple of moves. This was the position. King to b3, queen to b2 check, king to a4, king queen to a2 check, king to b5, and pawn a6 is check and mate. So that mate was missed by black. Queen c4 check, and now I think, yeah, so this is the live position. There is a mate threat on this h7 square. There is a mate threat on the h7 square, so black has to be careful about that. Yeah, so the rook exchange was forced just to get this rook here, and I think this rook check is going to come first. Moves and queen g3 check. I think rook g6 can be played now, and there are queens. There is queen c3 check, king to f7. Oh, queen c7 is allowed. Interesting. King h6, and yeah, I think that should be the, yeah, that's a loss. Rook d6 is available, but this is a check first. Okay, so nothing to be nothing to be defendable there. Oh, free queen by black. Free queen by black. Black must be regretting this. Yeah, and this is again a, the tables are just turning in the time pressure, guys. A lot of mistakes and a lot of blunders happening in the last few seconds. If we just go back few moves here, first of all, white missed his rook c6 check. He played his queen to c2, and rook c6 was allowed. Then we had this check actually available. I saw this check, but uh, yeah, I think this was winning actually. Rook d6 check. Rook d6 check, and if rook takes d6, then there is queen takes e2, and if rook d6 king moves, then we simply can play rook takes c6, and white wins after that. White won't win because black has this queen e1 check, queen to d1 is forced, queen takes d1, king takes d1, and pawn takes c6 has to be played. So yeah, there is some way to defend, but I think still that rook d6 was a better option as compared to what white played this rook d2. Okay, so some misses there in the time pressure, but that's okay. That's all we know, that that's happened. That generally happens in the time pressure. So let's go back and try to play the next game. Try to get the next game actually. So Nazrias and English chess players. We have just talent in Pakistan. We have. Let's try to check this game. This is between the Maximus Gladiator from Iran versus Plavit from Khelo Chess India. So it's an interesting battle. Let's check what happened in the opening quickly. E4, c5, knight c3. This is called as the Grand Prix attack. Knight c6, and then we have knight f3. Sorry. So if f4 is played here, it goes into the Grand Prix attack. But here f4 was not played. Instead of f4, knight f3 was played, and this is generally played. This line is generally played to confuse black. Actually, if you want to confuse black from white side, just try to play generally e4, c5, knight f3 is played as the main line, but you can try to play knight c3 first if if you play the main line of the Sicilian defense. And after black's second move, you can then play knight f3. Even you can delay knight f3. You can play bishop c4 or bishop b5 and then play knight f3 just to confuse black as much as possible. So uh, pawn to d6, pawn to d4, pawn takes, knight takes, and bishop to d7, knight takes c6, bishop pawn takes c6, bishop to d3, pawn to g6, castles, bishop g7, pawn to f4, knight f6, and king to h1, castles, and pawn to e5, pawn takes e5, pawn takes e5, and knight to d5. Knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, and bishop to f4. So black would be happy with this position. He is able to get some open files here on the queen side to attack these pawns. His knights are off the board, and so as white's knights are also off the board. But I think white has to develop his attack here somehow on this king side as much as possible. I cannot find any way for this queen to intrude here on these squares, and this is going to be the permanent weakness in the position, guys. So that's what black can target. Of course, there is an e6 move which will just make sure that all these pawns are actually very nicely placed on this pawn chain. And this bishop probably have to come to b5 later on by queen b6, b5 and get it exchanged with this light squared bishop. And that's how I think the game can happen. But what was played? Yeah, e6 was played, queen d2, rook to b8, pawn to b3, and queen to c7, rook to d1, rook to e1, rook to c8, and bishop h6. Bishop takes e5 and queen to f7, f2. Now, actually, this rook f8 is not something that I am fond of here because this f5 is open. So this rook should have been there on the f8 to control this f7 square as long as possible. I can see a hi from Mr. Ferris. Hello, Mr. Ferris. Hope you're doing well. And good to see you back on the commentary, back on the live broadcast. Hope you're playing today's Khelo Chess India team battle. So we have rook to c8, bishop to h6, bishop to e5, queen to f2. Now this f7 pawn is hanging. So bishop to b5 and rook takes e5, bishop takes d3, pawn takes d3, and pawn to f6. So this is how actually black has lost, not actually the exchange, but a piece here. This piece was, this queen has been overloaded after bishop b5. It's overloaded by supporting the bishop as well as the f7 pawn. So rook takes e5 was here allowed. And if queen takes e5, then we have this beautiful queen f7, king h8, and queen g7 check and mate. So queen takes e5 is not possible. Uh, I'm just wondering what else black could have played here. Black could have played a move like probably bishop to e8, if I'm not wrong, to support the f7 pawn instead of putting the bishop here. And then rook takes e5 was not available because this bishop is supporting the pawn from e8, and this queen is supporting the bishop from the c7. h2 pawn is hanging, and then probably queen h4 would have been played by white to continue the further attack. So bishop b5, rook takes e5, bishop takes d3, pawn takes d3, pawn to f6, and now I think they should be winning for white. This is where the black resigned and the game was over. So let's go back and try to check the next game, guys. This is another good game between 2300 players. Knight f3, d5, d4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, pawn to c5, pawn to e4, pawn takes d4, queen takes d4, knight c6, bishop e5. So white is going with full force here, trying to attack as much as possible with both the bishops and the knights and the pawns. So bishop e7, pawn takes d5, knight pawn takes d5, castles. There is a triple attack on the d5 square now, and also there is a threat of capturing the bishop. So this should be critical for black now. So bishop to e6, rook to e1, castles, and queen to h4, pawn to h6, bishop to d3, knight to b4, and bishop takes h6, knight takes d3, and we have rook takes d3. So this is the live position, guys. Pawn takes h6 was played here. It was a sacrifice on h6 actually. So it's interesting to see how white proves his supremacy after the sacrifice on h6. It won't be easy for white because black has some defenses on his hand, yeah, like this one, knight to h7, and now there is no piece actually who can help white to continue the attack. So queen takes e6, trying to grab as much as pawns possible, and d5 was hanging as well. So rook takes d5 is possible now, and I think rook will swing to h5 very soon to develop some mating threads, but it's now currently attacked by the queen. So knight I think has to come in the game now as early as possible. Knight on c3. It's far away from this attacking position. It has to develop quickly to e4 probably, and then go to g5, or at least play h4 here. Try to create some pressure on the g5 square. So bishop f6 was played, trying to attack the c3 knight now. It would be interesting to see how white plays, because white's queen is threatened here to be exchanged, and if not, then black can just capture this knight on c3, try to create a double pawns here. Knight g5 is coming soon. Also, there is a threat of queen e1 if knight g5 is played. Also, black can play rook d8. Yeah, that's what I was coming to. This rook was not in the game, so rook d8 brought all the pieces in the game. Rook d7, I think, can be played now to support the knight. Rook f7 was preferred over rook d7, and we have bishop takes c3 also coming very soon. I just had a sip of water. Sorry if you got some odd noise over there. So knight d5 has been played now. Rook takes d5. Queen to b5 is interesting here. But queen to b5 is not. Oh, h7 rook is h7 knight is hanging. That's a miss from black side probably. H7 was hanging out there. Unfortunately, the back rank is very weak right now, so white may not be able to defend his position. But right now, I think position is fairly equal, as white has all the three pawns on his king side. Rook takes g7, another sacrifice here. King takes g7 is forced, else there would be knight f6 check. Yeah, king. We had this rook d8, so knight f6 was not possible. Pawn to c4, yeah. So this solves all the problems. This knight is now supported. There is no back rank weaknesses, so c4 is actually a good move here. Queen e2, pawn to a3. Interesting game, guys. White is under tremendous time pressure here. Rook takes d5, sacrifice, c takes d5, queen check, and queen takes d5 check. So black would be able to equalize if these checks are unstoppable by white here. So queen d5, I think this is the way to draw. And rook to d7 now. Check to king, and queen to c1. So remember, guys, there is no increment. So if black just keeps on playing for some time now, he's going to win, because he has 27 seconds on the clock. He will win on time, and it won't 3 seconds and 2 seconds won't be easy for white to defend. Now rook takes f4, pawn rook can go back. Yeah, so white is going to lose this one on time. Unfortunate for white, because he has played well and in the game actually. He had sacrificed a piece, and these are very good players, 2300 players. Still, he's fighting with on 1 second. This is the fighting spirit, guys, that you should have. Yep. So right now he's timeout, but look at the time, guys. So very nice fight by White here. Actually, he just lost on time by point 0.3 seconds, not even a 1 second, guys. So that's the bad luck for White here. But let's go back to a tournament. A good, nice, entertaining game, guys. So you should go back and check that game if you have some time. Let's try to pick up another top game. Let's try to pick up the game between the Nazgul and Blitz Super King. So we have d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, pawn to c3, pawn to e6, bishop to g5, bishop to e7, and I can see a hi from Dark Devil Dev. Hello, Dark Devil Dev. I can see you as Mr. Dev. Hi, sir. Hello, Mr. Dev. Hope you are doing well, safe and sound at home. We will be starting Khelo Chess India team battle soon at 9:30. So if you haven't joined the battle, try to join there. d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, pawn to c3, pawn to e6, bishop g5, bishop e7, pawn to e3, knight to d7, bishop to d3, We have pawn to c5, knight d7, pawn to b6, queen to e2, bishop to b7, and castles. So this is a kind of a difficult position, not easy to castle on the queen side, because we have this a5 and exchanges coming on very soon with on the queen side. Even this a6 b5 is very much playable here by putting the knight on b6, knight on c4. It's a nice lot of ideas that black would get here to attack this castle king. Meanwhile, white has to create some chances here with h4, h5, rook h3, rook g3, and try to attack the castle king here on the king side. So pawn to c4 has been played, bishop to c2, pawn to b5. Immediately black starts rolling his pawns, and this is the c3 pawn which is there on c3, which is the problem right now. So pawn to e4, pawn to e5, pawn takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, rook to e1, castles, and knight to e5, rook to c8, pawn to f4. There is a free pawn here on f4. What if I capture the pawn on f4? Knight takes f4, the queen is under attack. Queen takes f4, knight takes f4. I think it's not problematic for black. I think black can capture this one. Queen h5 is not playable. There is no threat as such after knight f4. Okay, and so Deepali Mahajan says, "Are we conducting online classes? I want to join." So Deepali Mahajan, yes, we have. I do coach online. You can join the WhatsApp group. It's given in the description box below, and you can ping the admins. My name is there in the admins list, so you can pick me. I'll reply you with the details of the coaching online. So join the WhatsApp group and ping me on the WhatsApp then. So knight takes f4 was possible here, probably missed by black. So pawn to b4, knight takes c4, pawn takes c3, pawn to b3, and this knight is now free on d2. Probably this is how black should have actually captured the pawn or knight on d3, knight d2 here. So knight to e4 and bishop to c4. Then we have pawn takes c4, queen to a3 check, and king to d1, knight to f4. Finally, the f4 pawn was captured here, and queen to g4, knight to g6 back, pawn to h4, rook to c4, pawn to h5, rook takes d4, king to e2, knight to e5, attacking the queen on g4. I think we had this knight f6 check possible. Knight f6, knight takes f6, and queen takes rook here. That was a nice discovered attack, probably missed by white here. So queen g5 was played, and then queen to a2, rook to c1. So as I explained before, that there was a very nice attack possible from black, and black has conducted that attack on the queen side and was able to open up the king. Meanwhile, white did not have any clear cut plan over here on the king side. So this was explained before, and right now we have rook check, and that's where actually white resigned. So white should have gone for this knight f6 check here instead of playing the queen to g4. Probably knight f6 check, knight to f6, and then queen to d4 was a better option. Then the e5 knight would have been hanging there. Yep. Okay, anyways, let's go back to the tournament now. And we have Khelo Chess India battle starting soon in about 13 minutes. So we will be joining that live broadcast also, but we'll be taking a break in between of about 10 minutes. So that broadcast will start late. Okay, so let's try to pick up the next game here. Let's try to pick up a game between Super Bohemo and Maximus Gladiator. We have seen both the games before, but these are high-rated players and whose games we should try to check. So d4, knight c6, pawn to e4, pawn to e5, pawn to d5, knight to e7, bishop to d3, knight to g6, knight to e2, knight to f6, castles, and bishop to c5, bishop to e3, bishop to bishop to b6, and pawn to c4, pawn to d6, pawn to b4, knight to g4, and then this bishop is now under attack, and the pawn is also under attack, and the game is over. Actually, queen h1 checkmate has been done, but let's check what happened in the game. Actually, so king to e7, then we have pawn takes a5, bishop to d7, knight to d6, king takes d6, queen to b4 check, king to c7, rook to c1 check, king to d8, queen takes b7, rook to c8 now, trying to attack in the c5, bishop b5, rook takes c1 check, knight takes c1, and pawn to h4. So this king is actually very much in danger right now. So if this bishop is eliminated and this knight is not there, then this is going to be a very quick check and mate. So rook f3 was played here first to save his rook. Uh, Knight to f8, queen to d8 check, bishop to c8, and queen to e5, knight to d7, bishop d7, knight d7, and queen to d4, pawn to f6, knight to d3, rook to e8, knight to f4, knight to e5, and queen b6 check, king e7, queen c5 check, king to f7, and queen c7 check, king to g8, knight e6, knight to f3, pawn to f3, bishop to e6, d to e6, queen e3 check, king to g2, and then we have queen to e2 check, king to g1, and queen to e1, king to g2, and this I think probably will be the repetition, or this is queen h1. Yeah, this is where the white resigns because he has a less rook. But of course, here actually queen f7 check was possible. The problem now is that this queen, even though yeah, actually queen king d2 is okay here, still manageable. Just make sure that queen e4 doesn't come with a check. If queen e4 doesn't come with a check, then this e6 can never be captured. Okay, so probably king f2 can be played here, and then again queen h2, and you can just repeat the moves here, just making sure that, or queen h3 check is also there is a possibility of queen h3 check or queen e4 check, so that this pawn can be captured for free. So a nice game again, but I think white should have just waited for a few moves to make sure that black is able to win this one. So let's go back to the tournament, guys, and check the next game. Okay, so let me just reply to Miss Deepali. Okay, so just a minute, guys. I'm trying to. Let's try to pick up the next game. It's a nice rook ending. Black is having two extra pawns. Let me quickly broadcast the message for the team battle, Khelo Chess India team battle starting soon. Okay, I'm back. So this is again an example of the the Philidor's position. Yeah, there should be a draw now. So let's go back to the tournament, guys. Check the next game. So they are still fighting out and trying to win on the time. So that's not the way actually black should have won this one. Black should have agreed a draw here. Okay, so let's check the next games. Hmm. Okay, so no one from Khelo Chess India in top 10 or top 20 or top 30 as well. So not the best performance today from Khelo Chess India. We have Palvit on 22. I think he's not playing. Yeah, he's playing a game now. Let's check his game. He is playing from white side and I think he is not in the best of his position right now. Yeah, this is winning for black, white. So this is winning for black. Let's go back to the tournament and check the next game. Sorry, I was just busy in taking up the notes and to do for the next team battle, which is coming up. So we have striker Perono leading right now with 42 points. Let's check his game with Mengalgat. Mengal Kalat from Chessaland in Pakistan, and let's check what happened in the opening. Knight f3 was played, knight c6, pawn to d4, pawn to d5, pawn to c4, pawn to e6. So this is not actually the best line that you can play against the queen's gambit. This is a declined line with knight c6 variation. So knight c3, knight f6, and pawn a3, bishop e7, bishop g5, castles, pawn to e3, pawn h6, pawn h4. Interesting. So this is the sacrifice that white is willing to give here to open up his h file and try to deliver a check and mate here. So it would have been interesting to see if black accepts the pawn of the bishop on g5, bishop d3, knight to a4, pawn to c5, knight to c4, and pawn to b3, knight to b2, and queen to b c2, knight takes d3, queen takes d3. So this knight had its adventurous journey from a5, c4, b2. It got trapped, but luckily this exchange, this fork and exchange was possible here to get this bishop on d3. So lucky escape for that knight, pawn c6, knight to e5, and queen to c7. Still the bishop is there on g5, guys, so white is fearless, completely fearless here. He knows what he's playing and what he's delivering on the king side. So meanwhile, black is playing sensibly here, trying to open up all the queen side files here so that black king is stranded in the center. He has nowhere to run now to get a shelter. Queen and king, both sides are now exposed. So queen to d2 and knight to e4, knight takes, d takes, and bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and knight takes c6. So if the pieces exchange now, if the white is able to go into the ending, then he might get into a plus position to win easily thereafter. So queen to c7, knight to e5, pawn to f6, knight to g6, queen rook to d8, pawn to g5, queen to f7, and this is the live position, pawn to h5. So I think black if survives this attack, then black would definitely have a plus position. Rook b8 and rook to b2 or rook to b3 should come very soon now. Black's rooks are actually not helping him right now. So if they come into the game, then it would be easy for black to play his game. Pawn h6 will be played now. Yeah, trying to open up the h file. Pawn g6 should be played now just to. Okay, pawn g6 not played. It's exchanged, so that would give some chances for white now because rook g6 is coming very soon, very hard and very fast. Rook g6, and this queen b2 is out there for the exchange, but I think rook g6, queen to f7. Queen f7 is nice move because then there is a threat of this queen to f7 check. So rook f8 will be forced, and then we have if queen f rook f8, then we have rook g6 check, king h8, and queen h2. Not check and mate because this queen can interpose. Yeah, and now queen f7 f2 check. Okay, so white has found some kind of move order here probably which will help him to win. Rook f7, now the queen is gone, but I still think that knight queen to f2 was better there to get the queen into the game. So king takes g6 and we have queen e5. E6 is now hanging. This rook has to come in the game. If this rook fails to come in the game, then it would be difficult for any of the players to win. Not any of the players, white to win this one. So I think king d2 and king e3 or king has to find some shelter here. Yeah, king d2 was played here. Rook can come to b2 or rook can come to b3. First, the bishop has been moved to a safer square. Oh, he is giving away the bishop here. Why a free bishop has to be given here? There was no need to give away this free bishop, and I think black is going to lose this one. He has given a free piece here after playing such good game after defending so it's very well, and finally he has blundered by giving away the bishop on d5. That's not how you should play. So black resigned, and that's, I think, let's go back to tournament and check who are leading right now. So we have the Spanish team on 295. We have English players on 261. Sri Lanka on 255. Chess Talent in Pakistan on 171. Gujarat Lions on 168. Khelo Chess India not far behind on 160. Then we have team from Iran on 149. Philippines Blitz Chess Arena on 98. USA on 47. And big tournaments Chess Club, I think not many players have joined today. They are on 18. And Kilo Chess India players will be now joining the team battle of the 63rd Kilo Chess India team battle, which will be starting very soon. It must have started almost. Yeah, still 5 minutes for this tournament to conclude. This is the clash that happened in this tournament, and I was not able to change the timing. So apologies for that, all my teammates from Kilo Chess India. We will be starting that live broadcast also very soon. Let's check who is winning from the. Yeah, you can see her. I can just click on pause so that I am not getting assigned any games. So striker Perono is on 46, number one right now from the Spanish team. Then we have Choppy GB from again Spanish team on 41 points. Then we have Blitz Super King again from Spanish team on 40 points. Then we have Green Becker from English chess players team on. Okay, Dimabe has just come on fourth place with 35 points, and then Green Becker has moved to fifth position. We have Marcos Guti from again the Spanish team on 34. Then we have some God on 20, on seventh position on from USA. Then we have Maximus Gladiator on 2350 on 33 points. We have M. Rakhtar on from Sri Lanka on 33 points, and we have Dynamo from English chess players on 32. So nice game, guys. Till now, we had very beautiful games, and this was also a nice tournament. So if you haven't played this, you can play the same tournament next week also. So you can join our team, Kilo Chess India, and you can enjoy this tournament. We will be covering your games as well. So Sibuna is now started playing. Sibuna is one of our best players from Kilo Chess India, and he's playing on the Berserk mode right now. Berserk mode against the Spurs 1961 from English chess English chess players, and this is the battle that is going on. So pawn to g6, and now the d4. I think this was from the French defense. Let's not check the opening because we are running out of time now. Bishop to e3, and now king to d8. f7 pawn is now hanging. Queen f7 is the threat. So rook f8. I think bishop h6 can now be played to attack the rook. And now I think queen f7 is still playable. The d4 was hanging here. Knight takes d2. Sorry, knight e2. Rook takes c1. Rook takes c1 can be played. Bishop takes, and now knight f4. So Sibuna is under immense time pressure. He has to make his moves very quickly now. And actually he is a piece down. He's piece down here. I think knight g6 was available there. This bishop on e7 was hanging. Pawn g5. Knight to g6. I think knight h5, knight f6 is something that he's planning, but it's all about running out of the time now. Last 1 minute and 20 seconds remaining. It would be an interesting game if Sibuna is able to hold this one. It's very difficult, we know, but anything can happen in the blitz and bullet games. Knight g6, and knight can come back to e5 now. Bishop takes e5, d takes e5, and I think this is going to be. I think this is holdable for 4 seconds. If black won't just. This is the problem with if there is no increment. Opponent will just keep repeating the moves, and then there is no way to The person, the c1 rook was hanging now. It could have been captured with the bishop from f4. So increment is something that you should have for every tournament. I really feel sad when there is no increment, guys. So that's a tournament, that's the game. Sibuno unfortunately lost on time this one, and last 30 seconds are remaining. We have to quickly wrap up this tournament and then start the Khelo Chess India 63rd team battle after this. Yep. So last 6 seconds, and that would be the final ranking in this world country's third chess team battle. So just waiting for the final results. Yep, that's it. So average rating of this tournament was 1789. That's a very nice rating to have. So the European team, that is the Spanish team, has won here with 312 points. Then followed by Sri Lanka on 271. English players on 270. Chess talent in Pakistan on 180. Kilo Chess India on fifth position. Congrats Sibuna for leading from the Kilo Chess India team and getting the first place from India, Kilo Chess India. Congrats to you. Then we have Plavit also playing well today. Then we have Devanchan, we have Rodrigram and Shirhan Sabat and Sai Swarup, Ronit, Ganches and Aryan Brave. And we have last but not the least DMBA from Keruchas India. So thank you all Keruchas India team members for joining today and playing this tournament. We have Gujarat Lions on number 6 with 173 points. Then we have a team from Iran on 163. Philippines Blitz Chess Arena is on 107. USA is on 54 and big tournaments on 18. So that's all viewers from the live section. We will be soon starting the Kelo Chess India 63rd team battle in about 10 minutes. We will take a break of about 10 minutes and we'll be starting it very soon. Let me pause this, and I think I've already paused, but it just keeps showing. So that's all from the this live broadcast. Bye bye and take care. We'll meet soon in about 10 minutes. So this is a tournament which is going on and we'll be covering this live in about 10 minutes. Bye bye and take care.